Good morning, everybody. It is a new day. Today is Thursday. It is 12 o'clock midnight, right on the dot. I am going ahead and continue with our previous setting of Thoughts If It Were You. This is Food for Thought by Neo Gentrics. Today, we're going to continue on with the moral series. And like I mentioned last time, I'm going to do acceptance. By definition, that is the action of consenting to receive or undertake something offered, or the action or process of being received as adequate or suitable, typically to be admitted into a group. Acceptance is one of those few morals that a lot of people out there consider to be mute, if you will. It's not exactly widely accepted as a moral, and it's not even considered something that people consider anymore. The only time acceptance is brought up is when something needs to be received from someone else, and it's usually not really of value except for the person that's sending them to get it. Okay? Acceptance in human psychology is a person's assent to the reality of a situation, recognizing a process or a condition without attempting to change or protest it. So, with that being said, let me give you 5 things everybody should know about acceptance, okay? The first time someone even posted the idea of acceptance, I was having a discussion with a therapist I ran into, okay? And we were discussing things like relationships and stuff, and, it brought up a lot of questions and a lot of things that most people wouldn't even have considered at the time. And as a lot of people get older, they begin to understand why desiring something else, something that was, for the most part, out of their control, was causing them more pain than accepting that, at least for now. This is the way it's going to be, Consider a common saying, especially from the Buddhist philosopher. Now, keep in mind, I don't really care for Buddhism, but some of them make a lot of point. Suffering equals pain times resistance. Essentially, accepting the pain or reality or experience or relationship causes less suffering than struggling vainly against it for those who have issues with people around them. Here's the thing about acceptance. In many cases, we have a choice. We can either accept or reject. And much of the time, rejecting doesn't change our reality. It just causes pain. We talk about acceptance in therapy, but we don't always unpack the word. So, with that being said, here are 5 things we should at least know about acceptance. The first thing is this. Acceptance doesn't mean liking, wanting, choosing, or supporting, okay? Rather, no one is suggesting you like, want, or support whatever it is that you're accepting. In the case of a formula, the pain, but by struggling against the pain, by resisting and rejecting it, we can create undue suffering. It doesn't mean that you've chosen or endorsed that you are accepting this pain. It doesn't mean that you like your anxiety, want your chronic pain, would choose your body, or support an injustice that happened to you or someone else. Rather, you're choosing to allow it to be there when you can't change it in the moment, to make a space for it, if you will. To give yourself permission to be as you are, feel what you feel, or have experienced what you've experienced without creating unproductive shame or anxiety. The pain might still be there, but some of the suffering will be alleviated from this. Moving on, the second thing is acceptance is an active process, okay? It must be practiced. Remember that accept is a verb, okay? It's an active process, one that must be practiced consciously, not subconsciously. It's rare that we one day choose to accept our emotional or physical pain, our bodies, our difficult relationships, or our past, and never even think about it again. But it requires effort at times, or of the most time, or at least initially. It can be frustrating at times, but like creating a clearing in a grass field by walking the same path many times, every time you practice acceptance towards something, you create and strengthen neural pathways in your brain, facilitating ease in the future. Practice compassion to yourself alongside acceptance. Practice acceptance of the challenges you're having practicing acceptance, okay? It's natural to vacillate back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between feelings of acceptance and feelings of resistance. Make space for the spectrum of experience and notice your internal uh, critic quiet, quiet, quiet. I can't say this word. And notice your internal critic shut up. Let's just say that. Number 3, acceptance doesn't mean that you can't work on changing things, okay? Many people believe that acceptance is a sign of apathy, passively giving up, relinquishing agency. However, this doesn't have to be the case. Acceptance can be practiced alongside any action, as it is the basis of acceptance and commitment therapy, one of the things that psychiatrists do, known as the ACT. Not the one that you take as a test. This is a totally different one. Acceptance and commitment therapy is for those who have a problem accepting that is what is. Practicing acceptance does not necessarily mean you won't be able to make a change. You can accept your body and still change it. Accept your emotions and acknowledge their impermanence. And accept your behavior one day when you might change it tomorrow. Which brings me to the next point. 4, acceptance doesn't mean you're accepting is going to be that way forever. Okay, a decade later, the relationship I now have with my dad is galaxies different from what it used to be. Granted, it's not a bad thing, but it's still something. Like, it's at the point now where I don't really have to say what I mean. I could say one word and my dad will understand what I'm talking about. That's just how far along we've come. I wouldn't say that it's due entirely to acceptance, but it does show that acceptance does always mean that whatever you're accepting will be that way forever. Try to focus your acceptance on the present alongside an opening and realistic gaze at the future. Focusing too much on the present can be counterproductive, as a large part of acceptance involves letting go of the desire that things will change. Detaching from hope that is, in some cases, creating the suffering that you're very well feeling right now. But sometimes imagining practicing acceptance forever can seem daunting and overwhelming, or even impossible, so try to find that sweet spot that you're accepting the current moment, but not under the pretense that things will change in the future. And it'll grow on you, and it'll become a lot easier. 5, we can practice acceptance towards our experience, people, appearance, emotion, ideas, so on and so forth. Acceptance can be practiced in all areas of your life. You can exercise it towards your current experience or reality, others' beliefs or ideas, your appearance, your emotions, your health, your past, your thoughts, or even other individuals, just to name a few examples. Again, this doesn't mean you necessarily endorse whatever it is that you're accepting in these realms. Rather, you recognize you can't change the current nature of this at this exact moment, and accepting manages anxiety and helps calm you down. I encourage that you share how acceptance has benefited your life in the past areas. It can be practice that we don't always think of, and strategies you find helpful for practicing it might be able to be of alternate use. As Carl Jung said, what we resist persists, is one way of putting it. So if the alternative to accepting is resisting, then thereby potentially prolonging your pain, can't talk this morning, sorry about that, and creating suffering, what do you choose? This goes back to the whole main topic of this entire podcast, things to consider, thoughts if it were you, basically the food for thought. Does prolonging your pain truly help make you a better person? Or does accepting that this is what's causing me pain and moving on from it help alleviate it, making you feel better? The better path. And while it may not seem like it's the most intuitive way to do it, and it may be hard, keep in mind it's probably the best thing to do. And in the long run, you'll thank yourself. Again, thanks for listening. We're going to take a short break here, and then we're going to talk about 5 keys to accepting what you can't change.